Before we begin today's episode, it's getting close to the end of the year, and if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know that means it's nearly time for Obscure Characters Month. But this year I'm trying something a little different with the schedule, so Obscure Characters Month is going to be December instead of January. Watch for it soon, and get ready to celebrate the holidays with some lesser known and cult favourite bots. And now, on with the show. Comic books have played a big part in the success of the Transformers ever since it began in the 1980s, with Marvel Comics helping to develop the franchise and publishing various Transformers titles for its first decade. However, after the end of Marvel's last series, Transformers Generation 2 in 1994, things went quiet for a while, until the early 2000s, when a new company took up the reins and in just a few short years went from spectacular beginnings to dramatically crashing and burning. Sponsored by Patreon supporter Luke Wood, these are the basics on DREAMWAVE Productions. DREAMWAVE Productions began life as an art studio founded in 1996 by brothers Pat and Roger Lee, based in Ontario, Canada. At the time, Pat was doing freelance artwork on various comic books for American publisher Image Comics, but realizing that this alone wouldn't pay the rent, the brothers partnered with Image to publish their own original series. At the time, the American market was experiencing a surge of interest in Japanese anime, and DREAMWAVE capitalized upon this with comics illustrated in a Japanese-inspired style, distinguished by eye-catching digital coloring that strove to replicate the look of 90s anime on paper, even if the stories were just thinly veiled rip-offs of the popular anime of the time. In the year 2000, Pat Lee drew an image of the Transformers for a feature in Wizard magazine, showcasing hypothetical ideas for new comics based on 1980s toy properties, which garnered a lot of positive fan response. The feature proved prophetic. Over the next year, 80s nostalgia became an increasingly large market that comics publishers sought to tap, and multiple companies began competing for the license to publish new Transformers comics, with Lee's image becoming a lightning rod, seen as the ideal modern artistic vision for the franchise that everyone wanted to copy. Naturally then, DREAMWAVE themselves were among those trying for the license, and quickly made themselves a top contender by reportedly announcing that if they didn't get it, the trend-setting Lee wouldn't draw the book freelance for any other company. Their biggest competition was from Marvel, but when they pulled out due to the cost of the license fee, DREAMWAVE emerged the winner. With the license secured, a confident DREAMWAVE cut ties with Image and became an independent publisher in December 2001. Following a preview issue in March, DREAMWAVE launched their first Transformers series in April 2002, a 6-issue miniseries written by Chris Saraceni and illustrated by Pat Lee that presented a new version of the classic Generation 1 universe. The comic told the story of the Transformers' reappearance on Earth several years after they were believed to have been destroyed in the explosion of their ship while attempting to return to Cybertron. The series was a Transformers story by and for edgy 20-somethings in a post-9/11 world, full of government conspiracy, international terrorism, and large-scale urban devastation. The wow factor of its flashy colours masking the line art's dodgy composition, anatomy, and facial expressions. And it was a smash hit success, topping charts with between 125 and 140,000 copies sold every issue. DREAMWAVE's license wasn't just for comics. They also produced posters, lithographs, calendars, and even packaging art and pack-in comics for Hasbro toys, beginning with 2002's new series, Transformers Armada. To tie in with the toy line, DREAMWAVE also published a full-length ongoing Armada comic, which launched in July, its first issue even outselling that month's G1 issue, moving over 145,000 copies. Written by Saraceni and illustrated by James Reyes, the series was separate from the Armada cartoon, telling its own unique version of the Transformers battle over the power-enhancing Minicons. DREAMWAVE capped off the year with the launch of The War Within, a miniseries set in continuity with their Generation 1 series, taking place entirely on Cybertron early in the war, which detailed Optimus Prime's rise to power and his first encounter with Megatron. This significant series marked the return to mainstream Transformers comics of fan-favourite Marvel writer Simon Furman, and was the professional debut of popular fan artist Dawn Figueroa, who for the first time in the brand's history designed unique Cybertronian vehicle and robot modes for the entire cast. DREAMWAVE hit a bump towards the end of 2002 when it transpired that they had been selling their comics outside of North America without ever securing the license to do so. All international sales stopped until the rights could be sorted out, and while things were cleared up in time for the launch of their second Generation 1 miniseries in April 2003, the problem foreshadowed issues to come. The second G1 series, War and Peace, written by DREAMWAVE creative director James McDonough under the alias of Brad Mick, and still drawn by Lee, featured the Transformers returning to Cybertron to liberate it from the rule of Shockwave. Also in 2003, Armada continued, now with Simon Furman as writer, joined by Figueroa and Guido Guidi on art. While other releases included More Than Meets the Eye, a highly celebrated 8-issue series of character profiles in the style of Marvel's Transformers universe that gave many late-run Generation 1 bots full profiles for the first time. An alternate universe crossover with G.I. Joe, set during World War II, and a second volume of The War Within, subtitled The Dark Ages, which debuted the ancient evil Transformer, The Fallen. This series saw Furman joined by his old Marvel creative partner, artist Andrew Wildman, though his work on the series suffered somewhat due to DREAMWAVE's insistence on a house style that required their artists to ape the aesthetics of Pat Lee's art. The same year, piggybacking on DREAMWAVE's success, iBooks launched a trilogy of prose novels set in the company's G1 continuity about the robots' battles with mysterious aliens called the Keepers. DREAMWAVE themselves, meanwhile, leveraged their success with Transformers to acquire the comics licenses for various other properties, including Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and several Capcom video games. But towards the end of the year, word began to emerge of money management problems at the company. The Lees had been living the high life after their first-year success, which included buying luxury sports cars on the company dime. But now it was apparent that they didn't have the money to pay multiple creators on time, and the result was that many of these new series would wind up being quickly, conspicuously cancelled, or never released at all. As 2004 began, these issues didn't appear to be outwardly affecting the Transformers comics. The Generation 1 comic shifted from miniseries to an ongoing monthly, co-written by McDonough and Adam Patek, and drawn by Figueroa, opening with a story arc notable for featuring Japanese original character Sunstorm. The Armada comic was rebranded as Transformers Energon to tie in with the launch of the Energon toy line, and added Alex Milne as new regular artist. And other series included a 3-issue More Than Meets the Eye character profile series for Armada, a summer special which included Robots in Disguise and Beast Wars stories, and ran a poll calling on readers to vote for which of the two would get a full-length miniseries, a 4-issue Micromasters miniseries, a third War Within series, The Age of Wrath, about the evil alien Quintessons attacking Cybertron, and Divided Front, a sequel to the earlier G.I. Joe crossover set in the 80s. This year also saw the release of Dorling Kindersley's Ultimate Guide, a guidebook by Simon Furman that heavily focused on and fleshed out the DREAMWAVE G1 universe. As 2004 went on, however, more and more allegations of non-payment piled up, culminating in McDonough and Patek leaving the company in November after months of going unpaid. Publicly, DREAMWAVE claimed that everything was fine and that new talent would be joining the company to replace them, but behind the scenes, the Lees spent December transferring what they could of DREAMWAVE's assets to a new company named Dream Engine, before abruptly declaring DREAMWAVE bankrupt and shutting it down in the first week of 2005. DREAMWAVE went out of business owing well over $1 million in debts, and leaving Generation 1, Energon, The Age of Wrath, and Divided Front all unfinished. A few months after DREAMWAVE's demise, the Transformers license was acquired by IDW Publishing, who launched their own new line of Transformers comics later in the year. None of DREAMWAVE's series were continued, but two miniseries that had been in development, one about Megatron's origins and the fan vote-winning Beast Wars, were reworked and published by IDW, and the company also released reprint collections of DREAMWAVE's titles, though almost nothing from 2004 has ever been reprinted, due to the creators never having been paid for the work. While Furman would later share the details of how Energon and Age of Wrath would have continued, today, nearly 20 years later, McDonough and Patek have still never revealed where the collection of vague mysteries and unanswered questions Generation 1 ended on was going. The ignominious end of DREAMWAVE is one of the great black marks on Transformers history. It's almost impossible to talk about the comics today without talking about the controversial way the company imploded and left them unfinished. But that's not to say that in the just under 3 years they were around, DREAMWAVE didn't have an impact. They put Transformers comics back on the map in an unprecedented way, and their art was everywhere, defining the look and feel of the brand for the era, and launching the careers of creators like Figueroa, Guidi, Milne, Josh Perez, Josh Burcham, and others, who went on to greater fame working with IDW and other licensees. In reimagining the G1 universe, DREAMWAVE were the first to combine ideas from the original cartoon, the Marvel comic, and Beast Wars to create a streamlined, unified vision for the big aspects of Transformers lore that future series would build upon. They were the first to establish character-redefining concepts like the young Optimus Prime being a data archivist, and Shockwave being a scientist, as well as being the first media to depict Ultra Magnus like his original toy, as a white duplicate of Optimus beneath his armor, repopularizing the idea and inspiring numerous new figures. And several of their War Within designs were turned into toys for the Titanium series line, including the company's one major original character, the Fallen. Easily one of DREAMWAVE's most significant contributions to Transformers canon, the Fallen's debut marked the introduction of the mythology of the original 13 Primes, and he would even go on to appear on the big screen in the 2009 live-action movie Revenge of the Fallen. DREAMWAVE Productions comics happened at exactly the right time to achieve the result they did, riding the twin waves of the anime boom and the 1980s nostalgia craze to achieve incredible success that young, inexperienced business owners quickly turned into incredible failure. And those are the basics on DREAMWAVE Productions. Thanks to Luke for sponsoring this episode. Share your memories of DREAMWAVE's successes and failures in the comments. For more Transformers history, remember to like, subscribe, and support the show on Patreon to get early access to new videos.